Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Can't Be Bothered.
Hey, hey, hey.
We
Always
can't be.
bothered.
I can't. No, I'm not bothered about anything at all today. I'm ready to talk some shit. We have some good topics, and I can't be bothered what people think.
Oh my goodness. It looks like Kelly can't be bothered, excuse me,
Yeah.
behind you there. Do you want to explain what's happening for our listeners?
Yeah, so today we're going to be chatting about the Ex-Wives Club, sort of in honor of the Roni Legacy season that's recently come out. So this is Kelly Bensimon, is that how you say her name?
I think
Yeah,
so.
nicely. Uh, this is Kelly and the Scary Island episode, which, for those of you that don't know, is a pretty iconic episode, I think in season 5 of Real Housewives of New York. Just like one thing after another on this one trip. They went to St. Bart's and it's just wild. Like this episode is watching the Roni Legacy seasons made me want to rewatch this because all the clips that they show back to it is really hilarious. Kelly's just really disgusted as to why Bethany has an opinion about her, and I'm totally embodying that today.
I love that. That's so perfect for a Sunday. We're recording on a Sunday,
Yeah.
y'all. So it's like the way
Mhm.
that it feels knowing you have to go back to work tomorrow.
Yeah, I was just gonna say this is embodying the Sunday scaries.
Exactly. Scary Island.
Just for real.
I feel like I have to go back and watch it again because I don't really remember. And I know
Yeah.
it was super iconic, but I remember like really feeling for her during that episode.
Me too.
Yeah, so I think I'll go back and watch it, kind of like Dorinda did.
Yeah. I feel like when I was watching it, I remember being like, this isn't okay. Like there's something like going on here.
hmm
Which now we'll get into, but we have a little bit more context about with the new season of Legacy. So definitely we're gonna dive into that. But you are serving
I
today.
am serving from the courthouse.
Mhm.
I don't know what courthouse this is. I just Googled courthouse or courtroom. This looks like a pretty nice one, pretty high
Yeah.
end.
Okay, carpet.
Yeah, right. Um, but yeah, just we're talking about ex-housewives, and there are a couple on my list who are lawyers. So I thought I would just give a little shout out to the badass lawyers that we love.
Love you, bitches. Love the intelligence that you bring to the franchises.
Truly,
Love.
truly educated.
So I wanted to start off by us talking about potentially some of our favorite housewives that are no longer on air. I mean, to me, a lot of them that are no longer on air are no longer on air for a reason. So I don't know if they're
Yes.
necessarily my favorite housewives, but just some, special shout outs to them. The first one that came to mind is Brandy. I mean, Brandy is pretty vocal offline, but still very much in the Bravo verse. She was, of course, a pretty iconic housewives of Beverly Hills, excuse me. And she was one of those housewives to me that I couldn't wait for her to get off the show. But when she left, I do feel like everything really changed, and she brought a
Mm.
certain type of drama that has been pretty much hard to match since she left Beverly Hills. I think she just made it really messy, and Beverly Hills is very like prim and proper in my mind.
That's such a good point. I really, because I think I've said this before, but she is kind of the first housewife you ever really told me about.
Yeah. Just
And that
hating.
you were just like, you gotta see this. It's crazy.
That's hilarious.
Um, I remember just like sitting on your couch and you're like, just watch an episode. Like you'll just trust me. And it was pretty wild. I remember she was like, I don't remember who she was with, but they were in the bushes and they were like spying on her ex or something. I don't
Yeah.
know. She
Messy.
just, yeah, she's the messy queen. And I feel like she just leaves a wake of destruction behind her everywhere she goes.
Yeah.
Um, so as much as I am not a fan, I feel like that is a really good point that she just brought so much rawness, we'll
Hmm.
say, to Beverly Hills, which you're right is, tends to be pretty prim and proper and kind of like elite. So
Elite. Yes, I
elite.
do agree with that.
Yeah. So Brandy definitely, she's a big one. I, hence the courthouse, kind of thought of Ebony K. Williams. She's the first
Right.
person that came to mind for me.
Yeah.
Huge fan of Ebony.
Yeah.
She's honestly might be one of my top, maybe top five housewives of all time. I just
Okay.
loved her.
Nice.
Yeah, which is like a pretty big impact for only being on the season for one season.
Yeah. No, that's pretty crazy. I love that.
Yeah. I just I felt like she brought a lot of intelligence and a lot of like really good discussion, really important discussion, but she was also very fun. She was really hilarious. Like I felt like she had a really good sense of humor. She was always trying to be like really silly and kind of like bringing the energy up.
Hmm.
Um, but she also had things that she would stand for and
Yeah.
boundaries that were really clear. And
Hmm.
I felt like she just really stuck to her values while she was on the show. So I feel like she just kind of had the whole package. And I
Yeah.
definitely miss her. I was really sad when it was announced that she wasn't going to be coming back, but it was also like she came in and she left fully on a high note for me anyway.
Yeah, no, that's a really good point. I think she would have really done well with the current cast of New York, so I'm
Yeah,
disappointed to see her not there anymore, but hopefully she'll still be in our world in some way in the future. We'll see, but
I
love you, Ebony.
know.
Miss you.
I know. If someone were to come back, I feel like they should bring Ebony because I agree. I think she would jive really well with the new cast of New York.
Yeah, I also feel that way about Leah too. I feel like Leah would also jive with the new cast as well.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah. Leah was actually on my list too. So
Nice. Yeah, she's
she,
pretty iconic. I really liked the energy that she brought to Housewives, and I think though she really did highlight how outdated it was becoming for me, especially
yeah,
stuff with Ramona, like Ramona being so uncomfortable around some topics around like just women's bodies in general. Which it was such a double standard. I remember watching that being like, this is so silly, like that Ramona's feeling this type of way because she's the first one to like.
I know.
Anyways, Ramona is now luckily no longer on Real Housewives in New York, and I'm very happy about that. We all know my feelings about Ramona.
Yeah.
I also do have to like give while we're talking about New York, just a special shout out to Bethany Frankel because Homegirl is still very much you would almost think that she's still a housewife given how invested she
Yeah.
is in the Bravoverse and how much she's brought up in conversations. How yeah, just how active she is and everything. She's referenced so much, and for those of you that don't know, she's sort of I don't even know what to call it. She's on some sort of a mission, I guess, to in her way sort of like shed light on some problems within Bravo and the I guess specifically reality TV and Real Housewives world. But she's doing it more through podcast interviews right now, but it sort of seems like she's putting together some sort of documentary. I don't know if it's out yet or if it's going to be coming out. But yeah, she's very much part of this world still.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people who maybe are just getting started with watching the shows would think that she's actually on the show,
Yeah.
would be my guess.
That's honestly so true. I never really thought about that. She's been very iconic. Like
Yeah,
whatever we can say about Bethany, she has been iconic and she has been a
100%.
huge part of the franchise. And she's such a big character. Like there's so many quotes that are like she's very quotable.
Yeah, she is.
I remember there's this one little video that I saw, and she's telling this story about a time that she went and was just like eating seafood and like eating a bunch of crab legs or something.
Hmm.
And someone redid her telling this story, but through like a claymation or something.
Oh my
It's just
God.
her with like the seafood bib, just
I
eating
love it.
crab legs, telling this story. And I don't know what it was. Maybe it's because I have a tendency to watch ASMR videos if it was like hitting something on the ASMR, but it was just so fucking hilarious to me. Ugh,
That is really funny. I feel like there's so many great clips of Bethany. Whenever they resurface on my feed, I'm always laughing at them. And
yeah.
um, yeah, she's just so entertaining. And I think at the time, we've talked about this before too, but I think at the time of her coming on New York. It was really needed, and she definitely brought a breath of fresh air and sort of shook up some gender norms and this whole idea of what being a housewife is. And so I really applaud her for that. I do just find like it really funny when people though make these like parodies of her like reviewing makeup products and stuff because it just feels so random for her to be weighing in on that. Like I personally don't see Bethany as being like my go-to in terms of like what the best blush on the market is, but she's
Yeah.
like very aggressive about it too. And she's just so like New Yorkan
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
like it's just hilarious. I think I find her really entertaining and I always have, but I'm definitely curious to see how stuff with this documentary angle that she's taking goes and definitely would love to chat about that on the podcast the more information we get.
I know. That's something that is just a constantly um what am I trying to say? Like it's a constantly developing story.
Yeah,
And yeah, I feel like we've just really seen the tip of the iceberg on that.
so true.
Ebony and Leah both have been maybe to some degree involved in that at some point, but I think Ebony has kind of distanced herself from that since.
Yeah.
Because she's like, I'm not gonna let some white woman speak for me, which
Yep.
absolutely.
Yeah. No, I love that.
Um, yeah, and I'm not sure what Leah's involvement is or will be, but I know that she's been pretty vocal about happily suing the franchise. So
With ease and
yeah,
joy.
with ease and joy and pleasure. And I mean, I feel like it has been a long time coming and
Yeah.
probably something that was bound to happen. So I'm sure there
Mhm.
will be lots for us to talk about in the future.
Oh, absolutely, for sure. I also did want to touch on Tamara Judge and Teddy Mellencamp. Oh, look at me with the last names. Their podcast, Two Teas in a Pod, which is honestly kind of an iconic podcast name. I will give it to them. Like whoever came up with
It's
that, it's great.
Yeah, it was well thought out.
Yeah. Um, Yeah, they have a podcast about, being formerly on Teddy was on Real Housewives of Beverly Hills and Tamara was of course on Orange County, and it was sort of interesting the role that that podcast played in fueling some drama that was actually happening on the show. And they sort of like I think they one or two times have like played clips of the podcast on those shows, which I always find to be interesting. And Tamara's, of course, now come back on Real Housewives of Orange County, and I really think that that podcast had something to do with it, just because she was continuing to like be
Mm,
part of the Bravo verse and like is
yeah.
still making a lot of commentary. So I'm sure producers were just like, she's always going to be this way. We might as well just bring her back, which I love. If I were her, I'd probably be doing the same thing.
Mm,
But I just found it really interesting to see how they are definitely two women who have since leaving the show have still had it's still providing them like work in the field for sure
yeah.
in their own way. And I always find it interesting like from a production lens and like how that works around speaking about things. Like I'm wondering if there's like some sort of NDAs involved where you can't talk about some things about production, but they do say a lot. So I don't
They
know.
do.
Like they spill a lot about, and I even saw Kristen Dowdy from Vanderpump Rules, side note, but she was talking about like how they actually have to refilm that. Have you seen this? She talked about how they had to refilm that scene with Katie dumping the drink
Yes.
over Tom's head. And I
Yeah.
feel like whenever people who leave these shows talk about that, I wonder if there's any sort of like implication there off screen that we don't know about.
I know it's really interesting. Like even some of the stuff that has come out about this reality reckoning,
Yeah.
a lot of people have made claims that certain scenes were staged and had to be
Yeah.
redone. And I'm sure that there is truth to that because it is a TV show at the end of the day.
Guys, it's not
Um,
real, okay?
there's a lot of realness, but I think, or maybe they heard about something happening or they heard about a certain conversation and then they wanted to like get them to act it out again after the fact and
Yeah.
kind of rehash it. So I'm sure that that stuff does happen.
Yeah.
But I've also, the NDAs, I can only fucking imagine the
Yeah.
contracts that these women are signing beforehand.
Yeah.
And that's probably why. there haven't been as many housewives speaking up is
Yeah.
my guess, and why so many housewives are kind of running to the defense of Bravo and of Andy, because they're wanting to hold on to their contracts and hold
Yeah.
out that they could be back on the show.
Yeah, no, that's a really good point. And I really feel that that comes out through Tamara and Teddy, honestly.
Yeah. I've never listened to their podcast. Have you?
I've listened to some clips. Like they'll come up on my YouTube feed, I think, or TikTok, just about specific things that they could. But honestly, like we all know how I feel about Tamara. I think she's really entertaining, but yeah, I wouldn't necessarily go to her. I wouldn't really want to hear her opinion on some
Yeah.
stuff that and I really like Teddy and Kyle's friendship, but Teddy on her own, I'm not really sure about. I don't really love her like business stuff. So
Hmm.
I just the way that she talks about some things, I'm like, this is feeling a little icky. So I wouldn't necessarily spend my free time listening to that over just watching an episode of Real Housewives. But
Yeah.
a lot of people do really like that podcast and listen to it and find it like a source of information about the housewives.
Really
So yeah, the way that I
interesting.
see it and the way that it's coming off is like almost kind of like another source of tea. Like people like, oh, I heard it on a podcast that you said this. Like
Yeah.
normally theirs.
They're definitely going to be like announcing any whisperings that they've come across.
For sure.
Because we know like Tamara has zero filter
Yeah,
whatsoever. And I can
100%.
see that's, why people like her so
Yeah.
much. I also really liked Adrienne Maloof. I know that there was a little bit of a divide with her on the show as well. And I think, unfortunately, a lot of when we saw her on the show, there was a lot of conflict with her husband at the time, Paul Nassif.
Yeah.
Um, I don't know. I found it to be kind of charming and kind of relatable, and just like they're these big personalities and they're both super stubborn, and but
Yeah.
I felt like at the end of the day they always came back to their shared values for family and their children, putting them first. And that stayed true. Since she left the show, they have separated, but they're really close. They co-parent really well, and they seem to really support each other
Yeah.
wherever they are now. So I love that for them.
Yeah.
I'll just never forget the scene where she's cooking and
Oh,
she's got
washing
the
the
raw
turkey.
chicken.
Oh my God.
And they're
Yeah.
like, well, you have to wash it. And so she's like, okay. And she pours the soap on the chicken and starts washing it. They're like, not like that.
Oh my God. And Lisa Vanderpump just being completely like dumbfounded.
Yeah.
Hilarious. So fucking funny.
If I could wash all my food with soap, I would.
Yeah, no, seriously. I do also really like Adrienne. I really liked her presence on Beverly Hills, and it'd be fun to sort of see her again, maybe just reappear for an episode the way that Denise and Camille did. But yeah, I think her time on the show was definitely done at that point, and I love to
Yeah,
just see her on social media. So love you, Adrienne.
true.
I did want to talk about Tres Amigas really quickly. There has been
Yeah,
some drama. I don't know if you've seen
I
this
have.
online. Yeah. So Tres Amigas, for those of you that don't know, is Tamara. Once again, Tamara. She's really, you gotta say, she's quite the businesswoman.
She really is.
Yeah, but so we have Tamara, we have Shannon Bedoya, and we have Vicky Gunvalson from Real Housewives of Orange County, of course. So they were sort of coined that on Real Housewives of Orange County, from just getting really, really drunk in Mexico and just being like absolute fools.
Yeah,
Just swimming in the pool with their clothes on, just getting completely fucked up. Like it was honestly really fun to watch them. I know that you really like
it
seeing Shannon like
was.
that.
Yeah, I did. It was so
Yeah.
fun.
It's really fun. And so they decided to go on a comedy tour, more or less. It's like a show. So even though Shannon and Tamara are currently both on the show, Vicky isn't anymore. So this was very much like fans, OG fans that wanted to stay connected to Vicky and sort of that group, got a chance to go to these shows and see them. I personally would probably go, honestly, if I could. I just think it would be really funny to see Shannon more than anything. I
Yeah.
really don't like Vicky, but I would definitely go to see them. So there appears to be some sort of rumblings about that little group breaking up. I don't really know what happened. I don't think anybody does. But I know that like even throughout Shannon's DUI earlier last year or
Hmm.
last year at some point, um they were still very much going on tour and like doing their own thing. So I don't know if that has anything to do with this, but there has been some drama that's come out of it, and I think it's only Tamara and Shannon doing it now. I can't really remember.
I actually, the last thing that I saw, I thought was they're not doing it at all.
Oh,
And it seems like Shannon and Vicky have kind of sided together against Tamra.
wow. Okay.
I think it was Vicky that commented on one of Tamra's posts because now she's doing some different tour. I don't know if it's with Teddy. She's doing some other business venture, some other
Okay.
kind of tour. And I think Vicky commented something on it like Trader or like,
Yeah,
oh, maybe it is. I don't know if she's on the Traders, that
she
TV show.
is. Yeah.
Okay, so Vicky commented and is like, this is the perfect show for you.
Yeah. So, oh my God. I would love to know what happened. Like, hopefully in the new season of OC, we'll learn. But
I
yeah,
know.
some drama with that has been getting kind of weird. And speaking of that, not to take us off route too much, but
No.
so like there has been some drama between Shannon Bedour once again, her ex John, I don't know his last name,
Ah.
um, who's now dating another former housewife of Orange County, Alexis Bellino, who
Hmm.
is rumored to be coming back on the new season of Orange County, or I don't know if it's 100% confirmed, but in my mind, she's coming back.
Yeah, I thought that it was confirmed, but
Yeah. So we'll see. I mean, ugh.
the
So
rumblings are strong.
yeah, they are very much strong. And Shannon, has been with John for a very long time. I want to say like a few years now, at least. And it seemed like a pretty serious relationship this last season of Orange County. A lot of the drama, like we had talked about on a previous episode, was basically centered around her hating that people were like commenting about her relationship, even though she was the one that was bringing it up a lot of the time. So to have them break up was pretty big news.
Mhm.
I was shocked to hear that they actually did break up. Not completely
Mm.
like I knew that their dynamic wasn't really gonna last, but I sort of chalked it up that they were just gonna be one of those couples that probably weren't the best together, but we're just gonna stay together kind of
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah.
And so they did break up, and then now he's dating Alexis,
I
who
know.
I remember that people did not like her on Orange County. So that's a pretty crazy choice on his part to start going after another housewife. Crazy.
Yeah, I am so curious to hear like what has gone down and where this will all go.
Yeah.
I did really like Alexis. I know she was like a huge controversial housewife. And yeah, obviously there were some moments where it's like, girl, definitely doesn't mean that I condone everything that she's said or done,
Yeah.
but I did like having her on the show. I thought she was really entertaining and really funny.
Yeah.
So I am ready to embrace her if she is coming back onto the show.
Mhm.
But yeah, it seems super, super shady, whatever went down there with Shannon's ex. But people were kind of calling him out before they broke up and being
Mhm.
like, I don't really think this is like the
Yeah.
best situation. So it seemed like it was going to come to a head either way. But unfortunately, the way that it did happen, I can imagine would have been super hurtful to Shannon.
I could only imagine. Also, Shannon would just feel so deeply offended by it, no matter
Yeah,
how it ended, I feel like.
I think
So
you're right. I think
yeah,
you're right.
just so
Yeah.
impacted by it. And another former housewife of Orange County, Megan O'Toole, who I loved on the show
Wow,
personally.
really?
I loved her like investigativeness and like just deep dive on everybody and like just knew a ton of shit from the internet. And, like these women didn't know that you could really just like cyber stalk somebody the way that she did. So she would just come with like receipts and like she would just go and find all this information on Facebook. And like I just thought it was hilarious
Wow.
that this girl would just be like, yeah, and something that my friend and I always laugh at is that she's quote unquote just a lover of knowledge, which I think is such a hilarious. That's what she said about
Yeah, I
herself.
remember that.
I just thought that was such a hilarious way of being like, yeah, I find dirt on the internet about people. Like,
Yeah, I
so
just love information. I love
yeah,
ammo.
I just love education.
Oh my God. That's actually really funny. And it Listeners, it doesn't happen very often that we like disagree
Yeah,
strongly on a lot of things, but she was in the annoying category for me.
for
I was
sure.
not a fan.
For sure.
There were definitely moments where I was like, oh yeah, I definitely support her here, and agree with what she's saying, but I just was like, girl, like calm the fuck down.
Yeah, the
I
stakes were really high.
Yeah, I normally found her to be more annoying than entertaining. But I can definitely see like what she brought to the show in fair.
Yeah. And like in all fairness, I think I'm somebody that sees the annoyingness as entertaining to some
Yeah,
degree. So depending on everybody's tolerance to that. But she
exactly.
was definitely one of those people that sticks out in my mind when I think of like older Orange County. Yeah, so she's been sort of to get back to that, she's been sort of getting some heat around being sort of involved in this like weird love triangle between Alexis, John, and Shannon. Not necessarily her being involved with John by any means, but just like commenting a lot about it. And I think
Oh,
she released some sort of like text messages between her and somebody. I don't know. I didn't read
really?
fully into it, but she's definitely like when I Googled her for in preparation for this podcast, there was all these like headlines of her like releasing private text messages, and I'm like,
What?
she's still on her shit. Like, I
Damn.
which I just
The
think is
ultimate
hilarious.
pot stirrer.
Mhm.
Wow. I
Yeah.
didn't hear any of that. I didn't know that, but it clearly wouldn't change my opinion of
Yeah.
her.
That's hilarious.
Once again, being annoying.
So speaking of Orange County, I know that we had talked about Jen
Yes,
previously. So let's chat
yeah.
about Jen.
Oh my gosh, the doctor.
That's what.
Jen Armstrong. I love Jen.
Yeah.
I really liked her on the show. She not just because she's a doctor, but she does remind me of Nicole from Miami.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just
Yeah.
like I don't know, I feel like there's a degree of having boundaries,
Mm,
being really career oriented, being really independent. I will say, like, it was kind of hard for me seeing her relationship the way that it was at times. I wasn't really a huge fan of her partner, but
no.
they are no longer together. So,
Slay.
I'm happy for her in her newfound independence.
Thanks.
And yeah, I just thought she was really sweet, and I felt like she just brought another perspective as like really career driven to the show,
Mhm.
which I loved.
Yeah,
Loved
we
all of
love
her.
that. We obviously love that.
Yeah.
I feel similarly. I really thought that Jen Armstrong and the new Jen on OC are really quite similar.
Yeah.
And I just thought Jen was just really blunt and really straightforward, and I really liked her, and I was actually quite surprised to see her not come back. I don't know if that was her choice or Bravo's, but I
Mhm.
really thought that she would at least be back for one more season. I was surprised that she was only on for one. I
Yeah.
think only one. But yeah, I really liked her too, and I would love to sort of see her in other contexts maybe in the future, but maybe some sort of dating show. She'd be fun on a dating show.
Oh, that would be cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. I like her videos on Instagram. She's always like posting these little educational snippets and like
Nice.
ways to take care of your skin and just different things like that. So
Love that.
shout
That's so
out
sweet.
Jen.
And I also love when women come on the show that are so like I don't necessarily not financially independent, but just like have such a strong career that they can fall back on, that they don't necessarily need to be on Housewives. I just
Yeah.
think it's really cool because then she can just be like, I don't want to do this, so I don't have to. And like, slay. That's great.
Yeah. I love that.
Yeah.
Shout out.
Shout out beach. In terms of like communicating with ex or former housewives, I don't know what to call them. I guess ex housewives. I don't know if anybody who's listening has ever watched Jeff Lewis's interviews on YouTube. I think he's a Sirius XM radio host.
Oh,
And then the clips are just on YouTube. That's the only way that I listen. I don't have Sirius. I'm not like that.
no. I'm not like that.
He hosts a lot of former housewives on his radio show, I guess. And like I don't know, again, like this whole like leaving Bravo and like what sort of NDAs you have to sign, because a lot of these women, they spill some fucking tea on that show.
Yeah.
And they spill like continuing tea. Like I know that Denise Richards has appeared a few times, and she'll talk about like conversations that she's had up until that day with Lisa Rinna and gives us a lot of context as to where things are at with her now. And I
Hmm.
always find that really interesting because I stay connected to a lot of those women even after they leave the show. And I'm just curious to see what they're up to. And I also think that watching yourself on on the show could probably like there'd be just be a lot of reflection from that. And I'm always curious to hear if that's sort of resonating with them. Not quite for Denise, I don't think. But yeah, I if you haven't checked them out, like they're really entertaining. And I know that Jeff is like on Watch What Happens Live sometimes, which I
Hmm.
love that there's no like beef there. Like they just talk about housewives equally and it's shared and
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah. I think he was involved with BravoCon too. And like, I feel like he and Andy are friends. Like, I don't
Yeah,
know the connection really,
I think
but
so too.
yeah, no, it's interesting. I haven't seen any of them, but I didn't really realize he did that. But
Hmm.
I'd definitely be interested. So that's good to know.
Like into it, girl. And I know he did have some beef with Bethany Frankel too.
Yeah.
That was so cringy on Watch What Happens Live. If anybody hasn't seen it yet,
uh,
just Google or YouTube Bethany Frankel, Jeff Lewis, Watch What Happens Live, and just feast your eyes.
yeah, they've definitely fired a lot of shots at each other. And then they always like it, well, at least what I've seen from him, he always wants to like backtrack it and be like, no, but like I really respect her and like she's amazing and she's done her bit, but like she just really fucked up. Like she's just all
Yeah,
this.
it's like you're giving Wendy Williams like just
Yeah.
like just say your shit. It's fine.
Oh man. When you were just talking there about Rinna though, I don't know why I never really thought about Rinna, but
Me neither, because she's still
um
here with us, I feel like.
I feel like she's kind of like Tamara in the sense that she will always be with us.
Yes.
Like she's never
Yes.
gonna go anywhere. She's always
No.
gonna find a way to like be relevant.
100%.
Obviously fucking love her videos of dancing
Me
around Harry
too.
Hamlin.
Mary Hamlin.
Oh,
I
it's
do love Ren.
great.
I love Rinna a lot, and
Yeah.
um, I feel some type of way about her no longer being on Beverly Hills. I just don't feel like it's quite the same,
Yeah.
personally.
Yeah. I agree. I feel like we could have done with like a little bit more closure.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but yeah, who knows? I'm waiting. Maybe there's going to be like some ultimate girls trip with
Oh,
our favorites, some of
that
our
would be
favorites.
so good. Oh, yeah, that'd be great. And even speaking of that, I didn't even think of Kim and Kathy Richards either.
Yeah, I did like when Kathy was on the show for I felt like she was what Mary Cosby was supposed to
Oh
do
my
in
God.
her time, like
Beautifully put. Wow. Yeah, so well put. Hmm.
just like she's just along for the ride. She doesn't
Just
have to be
quirky.
deeply invested, but quirky, really comical, like comic relief. Those one-liners are gold. Mary did not deliver, that's without a doubt. But Kathy, during her time, she really delivered. But
Good.
I'm sad for all the things that have gone on with her relationship with Kyle, and obviously
Yeah.
we just wish the best for Kyle. But it was nice seeing Kim, I will say. It was really nice
Yeah.
seeing her. She seems really good. I love that she's drawing on the walls. Like, go girl, like, do your thing. You're an artist.
I love that she's drawing on the walls.
Like, fucking just draw on your walls.
And it's like it's just hilarious. Yeah,
Just
I
do
totally
it.
blocked that part out. I love that we talk of Kim like a relative that just like stopped by our house for like a quick cup of tea. Like it was great
Yeah.
to see her. Just
Yeah, it was great to see her. I felt like we did have a little visit with her. So,
and goodbye.
and till next time.
I also feel like it was funny to see her like when conflict was happening at Kim's or Kyle's. She was like, "Okay, I'm gonna go get a
Yeah,
drink." Like it was so funny to see her shy away from conflict.
that was great. I loved that. Like, it was honestly really nice to see. It was healing. It was
Yeah,
healing.
it's healing.
Yeah, it truly was.
Nice.
Um, I also think about Carolyn Manzo from
Oh,
New Jersey.
yeah.
She was definitely a favorite for me. I just loved her. She
Yes.
obviously was giving us mother energy.
It was giving
It
mother.
was giving mother. She just I just appreciated that she would always speak truthfully and honestly and she just had such a strong voice, and she was also really funny and sassy. Like her sass is gold.
Hmm.
Um, so just really appreciated that. Obviously, there's been a lot of conflict, across the OG New Jersey families with the Judices and the Gorgas, and that shit is messy. Um, but you know, I miss the good old days sometimes where it was like the Wakilis and
Yeah.
everyone was like together gathering, and like that was nice. And it's really sad hearing how um much breakdown there's been
Yeah.
in the family, and how people are none of them are really talking with each other. Um
Yeah.
I loved Rosie. I
Mhm.
Oh my God, I was a huge fan of Rosie. Absolutely loved Rosie. I just had so much love for Rosie, and just knowing that like they're not really talking anymore, and we don't get to see them anymore, like they'll never be like friend of on the show
Yeah,
again, I think.
no.
So it's sad how that ended, but
Yeah, that's a really good point. I feel like the emotional investment, if anybody's gonna have an emotional connection to any sort of Real Housewife group, it would definitely be New Jersey, just because like you really felt like you were a part of their family, and it was hard to it's hard to see where things are at now with New Jersey,
yeah.
and how divided everybody's been. And yeah, I think I can totally see um people that are connected to New Jersey feeling sad about not having that anymore. So that'd be fun.
Yeah.
And I know that Carolyn, was she not part of a series that we're not going to be able to see anymore? Like they'd filmed the whole season and now it's
Yeah.
not coming out.
Ultimate girls trip because of our friend Brandy. There was some alleged non-consensual contact between Brandy and Carolyn, and yeah, that apparently is going to be sealed away forever and never released. So uh, I don't know.
I'm
I,
just picturing this like ginormous vault with like this little microchip in it, and like
dude.
all the Bravo fans are just like gnawing away at it, trying to get in
Oh my
there.
God.
I mean, fair enough. Like that's pretty big for them to film an entire season and like lose so much money doing that and to not.
Yeah.
That must be pretty severe.
It must have been. And I mean, they have had other situations that have been similar, of a similar nature.
Yeah.
And they've received a lot of um, a lot of negative criticism for the way that they've handled that, and or haven't handled that and taken it seriously. And so I feel like maybe it's a reflection of wanting to actually respond fully when those things come up, rather
Yeah.
than just be super passive about it.
Yeah.
But we'll see.
And ultimately like not publish something that is gonna hurt people and then need to apologize for it later. Like I think that that is probably a better thing that they did, depending on what it
Yeah.
is. So good for them.
Yeah, I agree.
So who do you want to see come back if we could magically wave our little wands?
Oh
Who
my
would you like
gosh.
come back?
Well, obviously I've talked about Ebony.
Yeah.
Would love to see that. I know there have been like a lot of people asking Lisa Vanderpump of
Hmm.
Beverly Hills and Vanderpump Rules fame, if she would ever return to the show. And I think it would be really interesting to see. But I don't think it's ever going to happen. And
Yeah.
we're just seeing so much of her in other ways that, like, would I love it? Would I embrace it? Absolutely. Do I think it's realistic? No.
Yeah, that's fair. Got to keep the expectations realistic.
Exactly. What about you?
Well, I, as I said, Rinna, I would love to see her come back in some shape and form. I think that that would be great. I just fucking love Rinna, so I'd love to see her back. Um, I do have to say, like, I think the Luann, Sonia, Dorinda trio, Not that I would want them back on New York, but I would love, like, I personally really liked Crappy Lake. I don't think you ever saw it. Um,
I didn't. I need to see
it's
it.
just so like they're just so fun and lighthearted, and there's not really much drama other than them just bickering at each other like sisters
Yeah.
would. It's just really sweet, and I do love seeing their dynamic. I love the place that Luann's in right now, and I really like to see Devin Dash. I just find them so hilarious that I would love
They
to
are.
keep seeing them, and I hope that the legacy trip isn't the last one. I think it may be, but I hope it's not.
Aw, I know. Yeah, I will say that this recent Legacy Ultimate Girls trip, it did make me remember how much I loved those three, especially Dorinda and Sonia.
Yeah.
So I would love to see them again in some capacity and definitely need to check out Crappy Lake
Yeah,
because
it's really fun. If you just want something like lighthearted, stay connected to them. It's funny and sweet. It's good.
exactly.
Yeah.
I also want to give a shout out. It's a little bit more niche, a little bit less mainstream, but I loved Real Housewives of Melbourne. Um, and Gina Liano, she was part of the original cast. She's also a lawyer, so part of
Hmm.
like my courtroom appearance today is a shout out to her.
Aw.
I just loved Gina. She was amazing, and she was recently asked if she would ever return to Real Housewives of Melbourne, and she said she would. She's like, I'm a fixer, and if they ask me for help, because apparently the most recent season kind of flopped. She's
Hmm.
like, I would do it. I would step in and I would help because I'm
Oh
a
my God.
fixer. And I'm like,
I love
yay, please
that.
help us, Gina.
Please help us. Yeah, I would love to watch that. I'm really wanting to like broaden my horizons and not just like watch
Yeah.
older seasons of the same ones I've seen. Like I'd love to watch something new. So
Yeah.
put that
Well,
on
they
my
did the
radar.
same thing as Miami. They had like a couple of older
Mm,
seasons and then they rebooted it years later.
yeah.
And I didn't think it was that bad. I'm kind of surprised to hear they thought that it flopped, but
Yeah.
yeah, I think you'd like it.
Nice, cool. Okay, I'll check that out. Um, I do want to touch base on Salt Lake City. I know that we don't have
Yeah.
that many seasons and not a whole lot of wives have shifted. I personally think it would be absolutely insane if Jen Shaw came back when she's
Oh,
not incarcerated any
oh.
longer. I think
Oh my
that that would just be
gosh.
like so wild because she's just such a huge topic right now that for her to come back and be like, "Okay, let me speak on all the shit that you guys have been speaking about for the last like
Yeah.
7 years." I think that that would be like wild, and I could definitely see it within the realm of possibility. Salt Lake City is currently on a really good trajectory, and like we've seen Housewives go on for many, many, many seasons, and I
Yeah.
think that's completely within the realm of possibility that Jen Shaw would be back.
Mm.
So I would think that that would be really interesting. I don't know if I would love it, but it would be interesting. You know?
Yeah, I agree. I do think it would be really interesting. And I mean, even like Teresa Giudice, she was back on the show after she was incarcerated. So that
Yeah,
definitely is a possibility, but I'm not so sure with the status of her relationship with Andy Cohen and kind of the way
true,
that they've had a lot of friction between them.
true.
I'm not sure if
Yeah,
Andy would allow that, but
allow it.
if he
Yeah, that's a good
will,
point.
we would embrace that.
Yeah, I would certainly welcome it. And I know that we're going to get into Salt Lake City in a separate episode. We haven't even really touched on the finale or the reunions yet. There's a lot to talk about. And maybe my opinions will change because as of right now, we haven't had the third episode of the reunion yet. So, I don't know if this will change, but as of right now, I really do think Monica should come back. I
Mm,
just think like it would be interesting to see how they work through this if they
yeah.
can. And so I'm not sure if she is going to be coming back. My guess is she's not as of right now. I think like
Mm,
the rumblings is that she's not. She did change her like Instagram bio out of being a Real Housewife and everything.
interesting.
But her picture on Instagram is still her like photo in Real Housewives. And I think that's mainly just so that her profile is like recognizable if people are trying to like search her up.
Right.
People are like, okay, that's her. But yeah, her Instagram bio doesn't say Salt Lake City housewife anymore, so I don't know. I don't know if that's her way of also just like
Interesting.
keeping us on our toes, but
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know. I think that that would be cool as of right now. That's how I feel.
Yeah.
We'll see.
I kind of feel like I can't imagine that she won't return.
Hmm. I mean,
Like,
it's a perfect opportunity to keep the drama like going. You cannot top that. Like,
yeah, I don't know. I can't imagine how people are just gonna leave it there.
yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and I guess like you're saying, we haven't seen the third episode of the reunion yet, and who knows what will come out and potentially be resolved or at least have some closure at that time. Because that could really change things as well. But we still haven't heard. I think they've saved a lot of the drama around that specific situation for episode 3. So
Absolutely.
we'll stay tuned.
Yeah, and I'm actually noticing that there's quite a bit of like more empathy than I expected from Andy to Monica. And so I do feel like he would for sure extend that invitation to her, whether she takes it or not.
Oh yeah, I
So
totally agree.
yeah, we'll see. But that's all for me in terms of ex-housewives. Would love to see some of them come back. Some of them can stay
Yeah.
in their little world. And if I want to follow them on social media, then I will. But otherwise, toodaloo.
Yeah, I completely agree with like the sentiment that you started with in this episode. Most of them are former housewives for a reason. And
Yes.
for most of you, we don't miss you.
Yeah. And you know what? This has opened my mind up to the possibility that maybe a lot of them actually left on their own accord and weren't all completely fired. So,
Yeah.
rest in peace in the Bravo world and all the best in your real life.
Oh man.
Cool.
Yeah.
Well, thanks so much for joining. I would love to hear what people's thoughts are and who you would love to see back. If there's anybody that you disagreed with from us, I think that'd be really interesting. So please
Yeah.
send us a message or use the poll in the Spotify. If you're listening on Spotify, we have a little poll there. So let us know. And until next time, see you later.
See you next time.
Bye.